This woman I married, the love of my life, Catherine Ross.
And then, silence. Sam Elliott, the man whose presence once filled screens with an effortless gravity, slowly receded into the quiet he'd always carried with him. There were no tabloid headlines, no drawn-out retirement tours, no dramatic final roles. Just a gentle vanishing, like smoke dissipating into desert air. He stopped chasing scripts. Or rather, he stopped answering them. Friends say he didn't announce a farewell to acting because, to him, there was never a performance to begin with. Acting, in his view, was just truth spoken through someone else's mouth. And when the world got too noisy, too rushed, too hollow, Sam simply stepped away. Not in bitterness, but in peace. He spent more time at his ranch, mornings feeding horses, evenings watching the sun sink behind hills scarred by time and memory. Catherine remained by his side, their bond stronger than ever. They were often seen walking the property hand in hand, saying little, needing less. Their daughter Cleo visited frequently, bringing music and warmth, sometimes recording new songs in the same quiet house that once echoed with her father's lines. Industry insiders occasionally reached out. Would Sam be interested in a cameo? Would he lend his voice to this project? Could he give us just one last monologue? The answer was always the same. Only if it matters. And more often than not, Sam decided it didn't. What followed wasn't absence, but presence in its most intimate form. Fans spotted him at local diners, farmers' markets, veteran events. No entourage. No performance. Just Sam, hat low, voice soft, smile sincere. People didn't ask for selfies. They thanked him. For the stories. For the comfort. For the stillness. And then came the final whisper. It wasn't announced by a studio or publicist. It came through a handwritten note, mailed in sealed envelopes to a few close friends and quietly posted online by a family confidant. A note that read less like a goodbye and more like the last page of a worn journal. If you're reading this, then I've moved on to quieter trails. Don't grieve too long, I've had a good ride. I saw beauty, I loved well, and I spoke what truth I could. That's all a man can ask for. The note ended with a line scrawled beneath the signature, a quote from an old cowboy poem he loved. Ride tall, shoot straight, and speak the truth, even when your voice shakes. Tributes followed, but they weren't loud. They were respectful. Thoughtful. Fellow actors, hardened by years in the industry, wept on camera as they recalled the man who taught them less about acting and more about being. Directors remembered the silences between his takes, how they sometimes meant more than the dialogue itself. And fans? They didn't light candles or build statues. They rewatched Tombstone. They sat through A Star Is Born one more time. They leaned back, closed their eyes, and remembered a voice that felt like it came from the earth itself. In an age of noise, Sam Elliott gave us quiet. In a world of poses, he gave us posture. And in a time when authenticity was currency, he remained, unapologetically, himself. He didn't need to say goodbye. Because he never asked to be remembered. And that is precisely why he always will be. On purpose, presence, and perseverance. Because that's who Sam Elliott was, not a man chasing the spotlight, but one chasing the truth. His rise was never meteoric. It was methodical. He didn't crash onto the scene like a comet, he carved a slow, deliberate trail through it like a river through rock, quiet, constant, inevitable. Every role he took, whether center stage or tucked in the background, was a thread in a larger tapestry. And that tapestry wasn't about Hollywood. It was about humanity. He portrayed men broken but not beaten, silent but never absent. Men who felt deeply but spoke sparingly. Because in his world, and in his heart, words only mattered if they were earned. He became the voice of truck commercials and Western epics, yes. But he also became something rarer in entertainment, a mirror. A mirror for those who never quite fit in, who felt too much and said too little. For the quiet fathers. The haunted veterans. The dreamers who stayed grounded. For anyone who had ever chosen dignity over drama. And now, as his final words echo in that letter, "If I ever made you feel something, then I did okay," we are left with a legacy that cannot be summarized in a filmography. It must be felt. It's in the pause between lines. In the glint behind a stoic stare. In the breath before a broken voice delivers a truth that can't be taken back. That is where Sam Elliott lived. Not on red carpets. Not in bloated interviews. But in the space between sound and silence. He didn't break the mold. He quietly refused to fit it. And in doing so, he left behind something more powerful than fame or fortune. He left us with a feeling, raw, quiet, human. The kind of feeling that lingers long after the credits roll. So as the final scene fades, not in explosions, not in applause, but in soft desert wind, we don't just say goodbye. We tip our hats. We hold our breath. And we whisper into the hush he left behind. Thank you, Sam. You did more than okay. In long form, continuing the emotionally powerful, documentary-style narrative of Sam Elliott's life and career. To stay relevant in the now. But here's the truth about Sam Elliott, he was never trying to be relevant. That word, relevant, implies a chase. A need to catch up, to adapt, to mold oneself into whatever the world demands. But Sam? Sam Elliott never chased anything. He simply stood still, and the world, restless, volatile, hungry for something real, eventually came back around to him. He didn't need gimmicks. He didn't need reinvention. Because what he offered was timeless. While others contorted themselves to fit trends, Elliott remained unwavering, a stone in the river while the current raged around him. He didn't resist change. He just refused to lose himself in it. By the mid-2000s, his filmography read like a quilt, stitched with pieces of old-school westerns, biting satire, action, voice work, and introspective dramas. Ghost Rider. The Golden Compass. Barnyard. He could be a spectral cowboy in a supernatural thriller, a gentle bovine father figure in a kid's animated feature, or a sky-faring Texan in a fantastical steampunk world. No matter the film, no matter the medium, Elliott anchored it in authenticity. That was his magic. He didn't act like a real person. He was one. But it was the hero in 2017 that truly broke the barrier between fiction and truth. It wasn't just a film, it was a meditation. A reckoning. A slow-burning confession draped in cinematic form. Playing an aging Western star diagnosed with terminal cancer, Elliott didn't perform the role, he lived it. Every pause. Every distant look. Every word spoken through grit teeth and trembling vulnerability. It was raw. Unfiltered. Hauntingly close to the real man behind the mustache. Critics called it a career renaissance. But in truth, it was a culmination. For the first time, Sam Elliott wasn't just portraying a legend, he was confronting what it meant to be one. Not with vanity. Not with ego. But with humility. With grief. With quiet wonder. Then came A Star Is Born. When the trailers dropped, the headlines focused on Lady Gaga. On Bradley Cooper's directorial debut. On the music. But once the film hit theaters, something unexpected happened. Audiences, old and young, casual and devout, began whispering about one man. The older brother. The gravel-voiced mechanic. The quiet soul who carried decades of unspoken sacrifice in his eyes. Bobby. Sam Elliott. He wasn't the lead. He didn't sing. He had only a handful of scenes. But when he turned his truck around in that driveway, tears barely held back, the weight of a lifetime crashing in silence, he said more than words ever could. It was a moment that didn't just steal the scene, it shattered the room. The Academy took notice. His first Oscar nomination. Long overdue. But Sam, in true Sam fashion, didn't bask in it. He didn't campaign. He didn't wear it like a badge of honor. He shrugged. He thanked people. He smiled. And then he went home. Because for Sam Elliott, it was never about the awards. It was never about being the loudest voice in the room. It was about truth. And somehow, in a town built on illusion, that made him the rarest kind of icon. Even as the years rolled on, Elliott kept appearing, not because he needed to stay visible, but because people needed to see him. To hear him. That voice, low, steady, dusted with gravel and lined with honesty, became a kind of balm. In a world that screamed, Sam Elliott whispered. And we listened. Commercials. Narrations. Audiobooks. His voice became the sound of America's conscience. Not the corporate America of boardrooms and spreadsheets, but the soul of the country, the working men, the dreamers, the ones who hold doors open and remember their father's advice. He narrated the Ford commercials, the beef campaigns, and political documentaries, not because he wanted to sell, but because people trusted him to mean what he said. That was always the through line. Sam Elliott wasn't a brand. He was a belief. A belief that strength doesn't require shouting. That manhood doesn't mean domination. That legacy isn't about quantity, it's about quiet quality stretched across decades. In interviews, he rarely spoke about ambition. He spoke about love. About Catherine. About his daughter. About long walks, old westerns, and the honor of portraying men who carried themselves with purpose. He didn't separate his work from his life, he lived his roles, not in method, but in meaning. When he made mistakes, he admitted them. When films flopped, he laughed at them. When fans approached him, he listened, really listened. Because he knew what it felt like to be unseen. To be the extra with no lines. The kid with a dream and a deep voice people said would never sell. And now, looking back at a career that spans more than half a century, it's clear, Sam Elliott didn't just survive Hollywood. He transcended it. Because trends fade. Franchises expire. But truth? Truth is eternal. And that's what Sam Elliott gave us, not just in his characters, but in himself. He gave us the courage to be still in a loud world. The strength to speak plainly. The grace to bow out without needing applause. And when the day came that he laid down the roles, when that handwritten letter appeared with trembling ink and unvarnished truth, it hit like a final monologue whispered at sunset. If I ever made you feel something, then I did okay. Yes, Sam. You did more than okay. You reminded us of who we were. Who we could be. And what we should never forget. You didn't just play the cowboy. You were the last one riding. And now, as the screen fades to black and the dust settles behind you, we don't remember the box office numbers or the red carpets. We remember the silence. The kind that made us feel less alone. The kind that made us believe. The kind that will echo long after the last line is spoken. Certainly. Here is the long-form, uninterrupted, emotionally resonant documentary-style continuation of your Sam Elliott narrative, crafted in the same powerful tone as before. Then came Parks and Recreation. Who could have predicted it? In a world built on stark dichotomies and carefully maintained personas, Sam Elliott showed up as Ron Dunn, a Zen cowboy, a vegan mystic, and the spiritual antithesis to Nick Offerman's gruff and steak-obsessed Ron Swanson. It should have clashed. But it didn't. It worked. Because even in satire, even when poking fun at his own archetype, Elliott never lost the grounding. The eccentricity wasn't a performance, it was just another side of the same mountain. Quirky, thoughtful, strange. But deeply, unmistakably Sam. He voiced Marmaduke with warmth and whimsy. He played a high school football coach in Draft Day, commanding not through volume, but through presence. In Grandma and I'll See You in My Dreams, he stepped outside the cowboy mold to deliver tenderness, real, vulnerable, unguarded tenderness. And in 2015, after a half-century of work, critics finally stood up and took proper notice. His role in Justified, as the formidable and menacing Avery Markham, won him a Critics' Choice Award. It was more than validation, it was a reminder. The cowboy hadn't ridden off. He'd simply evolved. Then came The Hero in 2017. It wasn't just a film, it was a mirror. A cinematic confession. An aging actor with a voice known to millions, facing the yawning unknown of legacy, illness, and meaning. In The Hero, Sam Elliott wasn't playing a character. He was playing a man whose story ran parallel to his own. And when he looked into the camera, eyes soft with time, voice frayed by decades of use, it wasn't acting. It was honesty. It was a man holding his own myth up to the light, and asking if it still reflected who he truly was. And then, in A Star Is Born, the world finally saw what so many had quietly known for decades. He was Bobby Maine, the weathered older brother, the silent spine behind the music, the man who carried family wounds like hidden scars beneath denim and flannel. He didn't dominate the film. He didn't have to. In just a few scenes, one truck, one look, one long pause, he carved a space that became unforgettable. For the first time in his storied career, Sam Elliott earned an Oscar nomination. When asked how it felt, he didn't soften the moment. "It's about F-ing time," he said. And we agreed. Not because he'd chased the spotlight, but because, for once, the spotlight had turned to face a man who never needed it to begin with. Still, trophies were never the reason. In 2022, Elliott took on one of the richest, most emotionally layered roles of his life, Shay Brennan, in 1883, the Yellowstone prequel. It was a role forged in grief and grit, a man hollowed out by loss and holding himself together with sheer will and purpose. There was a haunted beauty in Shay. A quiet intensity. A profound loneliness that didn't scream, it whispered. It was Sam Elliott, distilled to his elemental truth, strength, mourned humanity, and unrelenting integrity. He won a Screen Actors Guild Award for the performance. But more than that, he reminded us again, this fire had not dimmed. It had only deepened. And yet, for all the awards and acclaim, there were stories behind those eyes that never made the screen. Back in the 1980s, when Hollywood still smiled through silence, Sam Elliott did something few dared. In an interview with the Dayton Daily News, he confirmed what many feared and others denied: the casting couch was real. For men. For women. For anyone unwilling to trade dignity for a role. Elliott admitted he lost parts. Turned down advances. But never lost himself. Long before hashtags. Long before movements. Sam Elliott stood his ground. He didn't tweet his virtue. He lived it. And when the cameras stopped rolling, he disappeared, not in scandal, but in choice. No Twitter. No Instagram. No curated posts of sunsets and coffee mugs. In a world obsessed with visibility, Elliott chose absence. And somehow, that absence spoke louder than any viral trend. Because it wasn't just that he was real, it's that he never once needed to prove it. His love story mirrored his career, steady, quiet, unbreakable. Since 1984, Sam Elliott has been married to actress Catherine Ross. Through fame. Through flops. Through decades of change. He once said, "It's not about luck, but effort." A sentiment that underlines everything about him. They didn't sell their relationship to magazines. They built it, privately. Carefully. Every day, they chose each other. In an industry that devours marriages like headlines, they stood firm. Not perfect, but present. That's the difference. Financial success followed him. An estimated $20 million earned over his career. But wealth was never the goal. He said it plainly, he never took a role just for the paycheck. It was always the story. The truth. The weight of a character's heart. Maybe that's why his most powerful performances weren't in the blockbusters, but in the films that felt like real life. His voice, oh, that voice, became something more than a sound. It became America's conscience. Dodge. Coas. IBM. Smokey Bear. Super Bowl narrations. Political campaign ads. Animated sitcoms. His baritone didn't just sell products. It meant something. Because when Sam Elliott spoke, people listened. And not because of branding. But because he meant every word. When he lent his voice to Joe Biden's 2020 presidential campaign, or supported Kamala Harris in 2024, he didn't do it for clicks. He didn't do it to trend. He did it because he believed in something. And people felt that belief. It wasn't partisan. It was personal. So what, then, is Sam Elliott's legacy? Is it the gravel in his voice? The stoic wisdom in his eyes? The cowboy code of ethics he brought to every role, every interview, every quiet moment away from the screen? Maybe it's this. In a world of curated personas, Sam Elliott remains a man of substance. He didn't just play the cowboy. He was the cowboy. Not the outlaw. Not the gunslinger. But the one who rides for justice even when no one is watching. The one who speaks softly because he knows his actions roar louder than any headline. And now, as he steps away, his farewell letter to Hollywood delivered not with fanfare, but with gratitude, we feel something we rarely feel for public figures anymore. We feel trust. Because Sam Elliott didn't just entertain us. He guided us. Reminded us. Grounded us. He showed us that quiet doesn't mean weak. That humility doesn't mean invisibility. That being a good man is still the most powerful legacy a person can leave. So yes, we honor him. Not with shouts. But with silence. The kind that follows after something deeply meaningful. The kind that says, "Thank you, Sam." For the honesty. For the integrity. For showing us how to grow old without growing cynical. For making us believe in the cowboy one last time.